What up, y'all? This is Patrick Hayes, and in this video what I want to do is I want to talk to those people that are making the transition from one lifestyle or one level of consciousness or one reality to another lifestyle level of consciousness or another reality. And I want to talk to you about the liminal stages and the structure of this transformation or this ascent to the next level, so that we can have a greater understanding about what is actually going on as we move through here, and then we can make sense of some of the pitfalls that we run into during this process. See, one of the things that many of the clients that I've worked with and many of the comments and emails that I've gotten from people is that many people feel like they are transferring or have transferred to a new level of consciousness, and that they have no friends or nobody in their reality that they can relate to or talk to or develop a kind of deeper friendship with, and they feel kind of like stuck. And I think that this particular dilemma that people are finding themselves in is very indicative of being in one of these kind of in-between spaces between kind of one reality and another reality. And it's a really common space for people to find themselves in. So I want to give a greater understanding of what this process of moving up to the next level looks like, so we can understand where this dilemma of not being able to find friends or connections with people actually lies in that process. And I'm also going to talk about some of the other things that we'll experience on that path, so that we can have a clearer map and clear direction for how to navigate through this process. Okay, so what I want to start off with is the process of leveling up or moving to the next level or changing our consciousness. And the first stage is disidentification, right? So we have this certain way of being, this certain reality, certain paradigm that we're living within. And at a certain point when we start evolving or moving beyond that, we start disidentifying with the particular ideas or mental modalities or paradigms and ways of existing that we have been accustomed to within this specific sphere. You can think of this sphere as like kind of like an island, right? So you can think of it as an island. We've basically gotten sick of this island. This island is an island of consciousness. It's not, separate in physical space necessarily from other islands of consciousness, but it is its own kind of like energetic dimension, right? So in this island that we exist within, we start disidentifying with it. We start, chopping the rules up and being like, listen, this is bullshit. I don't like this. I don't like that. Now, I'm disidentifying. I no longer am feeling in resonant with other people that are living on this island and the other forms of consciousness that are here. So I am starting to resent it or get upset with it or get annoyed with it and want something different. Now, this is the first stage of starting to shift. We're disidentifying with a certain level of consciousness, and then ideally we start re-identifying with the next level of consciousness, which is more evolved, we could say. So in the disidentification process, what can happen is people can get stuck in this place of nihilism. And this is where you've disidentified with the reality that you've had access to and all of the people in that realm, because you've basically chopped it up and seen all the bullshit in it, and you don't want anything to do with it anymore. But you have not yet been able to identify a new island where there are other comrades to start paddling your boat towards, right? You haven't seen it. You're like you've went offshore and you're in between islands right now, and you can't see anything on the horizon. So you're in this space of really like nihilistic hopelessness, like I'm the only one, there's no one like me, I don't know what to do, that old island is crap, I'm not going to go back, but there's nowhere to go. And a lot of people can find themselves in an existential crisis at this point on their path, right? But the next point that comes, if we continue to search and stay optimistic and stay open to new realities, is we start to see this new island, right? And this is where we start re-identifying with a new level of consciousness, right? So we see a new island and we're like, actually, there's a different way of being, and there's other people that are seeing things in a new way that's actually enlightening. It answers some of the questions that I had, and it organizes some of the fragmentation and disorganized old systems that I'm trying to get away from. So I'm actually seeing hope now. This is like something that's inspiring, right? And this is when you see that island on the horizon, you're like, wow, there's this new place. But then there's still quite a bit of time before we make it to that new island. And this is the process of embodiment, right? So we have disidentified mentally and re-identified, say, with a new set of morals, new set of perceptions, and a new paradigm. But we haven't necessarily embodied that new paradigm yet, right? So we haven't come to the point where it's actually the resonance that we are emitting, right? It's still maybe quite a bit conceptual, and it's not fully integrated yet. So at this point, we're in the process of integrating these new concepts, ideas, and new ways of being into our beingness so that our behavior and our lifestyle is actually of that new level, of that new frequency, right? And this is us actually bringing the boat all the way to the new island, right? So this is the framework metaphor that I'm using for the transformational process, right? And this happens many, many times in life. And one of the misconceptions we can often have is that when we find a new paradigm or a new reality that we resonate with, that like, that's the final one. Like, that's it, we've made it. This is what reality really is. The thing we have to keep in mind is that we're always going to transform out of that and to the next one. So when we can start anticipating that, it can actually accelerate the process quite a bit. But essentially, this is the overall framework. You identify with a place, then you disidentify with it, and then you're looking for something new to identify with. You identify with something new, and then you embody that newness, and you're inhabiting the next island. So one of the things we have to realize is if we're in a situation where we feel as if there's nobody like us and we can't find anybody, it's not that there's nobody out there like you. Even if you feel like there are people out there like you, but they're all like spread across the world and there's no one actually in my like close area. There's no one that I can actually make contact with or spend time with that's actually like me, and I feel totally alone. What we have to realize here is that there's quite a few different things at play. One of the things that that supports actually the reality of what you're talking about is the fact that, you know, when you're on a particular island, there's a lot of other people that are of that same consciousness, right? But when people are on a particular island of consciousness, it sometimes takes really, really long before they actually start realizing that, you know, this is limited and I want to evolve to the next level, and maybe there's something else, or at least they're starting to disidentify with some of the structures in that island. Meaning, and in fact, some people can never get to that point. So every island has many, many people that may be on that island for years and years and years and years, or maybe even their whole life, right? There's a much smaller fraction of people that at any given time have started the voyage to the next island. Therefore, there's much less people that you're going to be able to find that are like you in that particular transformation stage, because you're in this liminal stage between two different islands, right? Now, if you're lucky, you might be able to make that jump with other people, and that's great if there are other people around you that are making that transition. For a lot of us, though, unfortunately, there might not be people from our island that are willing to leave the island with us. Therefore, we find ourselves like on the water alone. Because oftentimes these transitions only last, you know, a year or a couple years or a few years, whereas you could be on an island of consciousness for, like I said, your whole life. You know, and then every time you make a jump to the next level up, there's less and less people that are making that jump, and there's even less and less people that are on the voyage to the next place. So to find people in the same time frame making the voyage that you're making can sometimes be really difficult. But understanding that that's where you're at can keep you from getting bogged down or beating yourself up or feeling, you know, hopeless about it. So one of the things you have to realize is that if you are in the stage of being able to see the new island, right? So you've already started re-identifying with a new island, but you cannot, and the reason why I'm speaking to this is because this is what many of the people that reach out to me are explaining to me. So if you can see that other island, but you can't really make contact with it yet, maybe like you can only make contact via the internet, you're only finding people online that you can resonate with, and you're not finding yourself in physical space, being able to get that kind of camaraderie and deep connection that you can only get from being in close connection with people, or maybe even you're looking to make deeper connection with people online, but you're not really being able to kind of like get in there the way that you want to connect yet, then what is happening is you are in this in-between frequency, right? So if you ever look at cymatics, you can see like where they put sand on a speaker, and you can see that there's, at certain frequencies, there's different locked geometries. Well, you're in an in-between geometry. right? You're not locked to the next geometry yet, which makes you somewhat disharmonious on both of the islands. You're disharmonious to the island that you've left because you don't like it anymore, and you're not quite harmonious for the next island yet. So you're in this in-between space. And therefore, you're not quite resonant with that new reality, and you're not quite resonant with those people that have stabilized in that reality yet. So therefore, it's hard to like lock into and harmonize with a friendship or with a community in that new island. So while mentally you've re-identified with a new identity, you haven't fully embodied that, right? Your boat hasn't got all the way to the island yet. And this is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But understanding that that's where you're at gives you the opportunity to start approaching this new island in the kind of way that can accelerate the process and can help you to harmonize more fluidly with this new level of consciousness that you are moving towards. Time and time again, there have been people that are like, you know, I live in this one country or I live in this one area and there's no one like me and I can't find anyone that's into this stuff. The only people that I can find is like you online and these other people online, and you know, I can't be part of that community, and I don't have the money to travel to these new places, and da 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 da. Time after time, and me or Bridget or some other people we know people in that general area that are totally on it, that are totally on that new island this person wants to go to, but they haven't had access to those people or those communities because they haven't quite embodied that frequency yet, so it hasn't opened up to them. That dimension hasn't opened up to them, and they haven't been able to find the kinds of circles that are local in their area. You know, another way this can show up is that it may be that maybe there isn't something quite in that close area to you, but it may be that you haven't embodied enough of that new frequency that you've attracted those kinds of resources that you need in order to travel to the kinds of areas that you feel called to, right? So if you feel like there's no one in your area that you can connect with, and you don't have the resources to go and connect with other people in other areas, then there's a level of embodiment that is missing that you will need to embody in order to generate the resources to go travel or to generate the kind of frequency that will tune you into these new areas. This is something that's pretty obvious, right? But it's something that is still like a translucent brick wall to many people, where they get stuck in the idea like, oh, there's no one around here, and the only way that I'm going to be able to, you know, find other people in my tribe is to go to this one place that I've seen online where everyone's hanging out, right? And they get stuck on that idea, and they miss the fact that there's, you know, maybe a dozen other people in their local city or town that feel just like them, that are stuck in that same spot. And we've seen this happen time and time again when we linked people up in different places that felt like there was no one in their area that they could talk to. Actually, at a lot of our retreats, people showed up to our retreats and found out, oh wow, they're actually from the same town. And they didn't know anyone from that town was like on that harmonic resonant frequency that they were, right? And part of that is because they hadn't fully embodied that new frequency. Now, by taking an action and coming to a retreat like ours and developing the resources to do that, that was an act of embodiment that put them in connection with the other people that were actually in their local environment. So oftentimes it is about embodiment. Once you start embodying that frequency, the dimension can't keep you out. It like you just naturally are able to find other people that are on that wavelength. So instead of blaming your circumstances, instead of blaming like, oh, I'm stuck in this place and I can't find my way out, do your personal work and work to embody these values that you feel so attracted to. Work to really embody and express that frequency, and it will poke you through to another reality that opens up for you to find camaraderie, find friendship, and find a community that is harmonious with your new embodiment. So a couple things you can do is really ask yourself and be willing to be honest with yourself about how open you are to trying new things and how hard you are actually trying to put yourself in the kinds of environments where you might be able to meet people that are more of the frequency that you want to be around, right? So are you actually on a daily basis looking for events going on in the closest towns or cities or the city that you're in that are in sync with the kinds of things that you want to be participating with? And if you're not spending a good amount of time doing that, and you're spending all your time online looking at other places and feeling like, oh, I'm missing out because I'm not there, then you're missing a key factor of embodiment, which is initiative. You have to take initiative, right? And you have to be willing to take initiative to actually get yourself to the island. You have to row the boat. You can't just sit on the boat and not row and stare at the other island and be like, oh my God, I'm not there. I'm not there. There's no one here for me to talk to. It's like you got to row the boat. When you row the boat, meaning you're maybe looking at meetups, maybe you're going to the local organic markets and looking at all of the bulletin boards and seeing what events are going on. Maybe you're looking through different Facebook groups and trying to find a Facebook group that has something to do with some of the new concepts or the new interests that you have, right? And you're actually actively pursuing a new community. Until you're doing that, you're not actually rowing the boat. So that's how you start rowing the boat, right? Now, if you're interested in some more techniques for being able to become more of an embodied creator in your life, I have a video that I did called Being a Creator. I think that's what I call it. I'll put a link for it right here. And this one really helps with how to explore new spaces, how to activate yourself and start taking action towards the new kinds of realities that you want to embody and experience. And this video can really help you kind of unravel that. So thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you have any questions or comments about this video, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. If you haven't hit the bell button and then you'll be notified every time I release a video. And I am super stoked to continue to offer useful and powerful content for you. So thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes and I'll talk to you next time. One love.